The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. I'm your host, advanced certified weight and life coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to stop dieting, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hey, welcome to episode 23. In this episode, I'm going to coach you through how to stop fighting with yourself over your overeating. This is really common to have a lot of my clients really get distressed about those moments when they may have made their daily plan for what they truly want to eat. They like their choices. They have a plan to usually meet their evening or their lunch and have it all go in a way that feels really good and right about showing up in a way that helps create weight loss that day. And then something happens and they sort of relay the incident to me like, well, I had a plan. I knew what I wanted to do and I just didn't do it. I either chose different foods or a different plan of like what I was going to eat, and or I just blew past my enough and I should know better. I shouldn't be doing this. This is not what I want. I keep thinking about like what I did and not understanding like why I don't just do what I said I should do. And this feeling of disappointment and like self um self-assessment that's negative is very problematic, and it sort of can bleed into the next day. And what it does is it puts an additional tension on the next moment that's leading up to your eating choices, because we have the heaviness of the thing that happened with the overeat. So there is a way to think about this that can help you stop fighting with yourself. You can see that in the scenario where your brain focuses on, like, why didn't I do what I said I was going to do? Why did I do something that I know isn't good for me? That's focusing on the part of the problem that is the unwanted part. And the brain feels like this is very logical and it makes sense. Like, this is the problem. This is where we need to focus. But when we do that, when we focus on the part of the problem that is unwanted, we move our focus and consideration away from what was wanted in that moment that we used food to solve. And this is where I want you to start shifting your focus when you have overeats. Here's the thing that I know as your coach. Overeating, when you are no longer hungry for food, is always either about just a habit of doing it, and or you're emotionally regulating with your food in the choice to overeat. So no amount of judging yourself over doing that is going to stop this habit from happening. Instead, we want to think about you in that moment as having a true need that you are meeting with food, which is a very poor solution for your need in the moment. Because, and how do I know that? Well, it might feel good in the moment to kind of have the second helping or overeat or have things that are not on your plan, have the cookies, have the Oreos, what have you. But we know that it's a poor solution because that choice to overeat takes you away from your goal. And not only that, but it sort of dampens your reputation with yourself as somebody who wants to show up in an intentional way around food, where you're changing your habits around food to truly become that person who releases their weight forever. So it requires a change of focus in order to learn how to stop fighting with yourself over your eating habits. You've got to change your focus. And this is why all my sign offs involve stay focused on what you want. This is just a simple switch of focus and attention. We're so habituated to focus on a problem in order to solve it as logical that we don't even see the other option, which is to focus on what's wanted and what's truly needed instead of what the problem is. Think about it. In the, law of attraction, when you focus on something, you get more of it. It expands that space. So focusing on a problem will just get your brain working to give you more of that problem, show you more instances when you're letting yourself down or when you have urges. And for many of my clients, introducing cognitive behavioral conditioning, which is that thoughts create feelings, which create your actions, which inevitably give you results, is a little bit disconcerting because an unmanaged brain will just start to notice all the ways that your thinking creates problems. And so there's discernment that we need here. And it's an art of sort of overriding the brain's tendency to focus on the problem. So the first thing is to just know that noticing your overeating and noticing how you sometimes do the things that you don't want to do, it's not necessarily a problem. It actually is showing you where your habits of thinking are leading you to actions that are part of the problem of being overweight. And we want those because they provide a trail, a breadcrumb trail, where we can get in there and we can sort of analyze what's happening in order to find a new solution. So this is how you stop fighting with yourself. Think about a scientist who runs an experiment, like a good quality experiment. They have a hypothesis of what might happen, but more than anything, when they put their experiment into process, they are keenly observing how the experiment runs. They're very open to, what haven't I noticed here? How are these elements working together in a way that could surprise me? Like, they have a desire to fully understand the system. And as a coach, this is the perspective that I want you to try on, which is all of my behavior makes sense because of my habits of thinking about what helps me. And so if you want to go from an overeater to somebody who has a normalized relationship with food, then we know that we've got to move you from thinking that overeating helps you to understanding what you truly need beyond what food can give you. And what's not being really overtly said there is that as a human being, you have needs. You have needs to feel good, to feel safe, to feel comforted, and to also have a skill set of allowing yourself to feel both good and negative emotion, and to have a capacity and process for allowing all that to happen without eating over it. So I want you to go deeper. If you're fighting with yourself over your habits of overeating, which I know all my clients have to some extent or another, I want you to see it's an opportunity that when you're overeating, you're no longer physically hungry for food, and that you're either in a habit of overeating that you want to change and that you need to become more aware of, and or you're using the food to meet a need that you have. So what I want you to do is to either, hopefully before you eat or after you eat, wherever you can catch it, I want you to just pause. And I want you to blow out what's really happening here so that you can discover what your true need is. So, like, ideally, if you start thinking about having a second helping, or maybe you're like thinking about having a nighttime snack after dinner is done and the kitchen is closed, um, just open up your journal or go through a few questions in your mind to try to figure out what's really going on. Um, the first question is, what am I thinking that food can give me if I'm not actually hungry? And I've gone over this before in previous episodes. But again, this is like a key skill set, is to just inquire and really like tap into what you really want. For so many of my clients, it's just I'm tired, or I don't know how to do the next level of work in my afternoon, or I need a break, or, I'm really upset because of something that was maybe said in an email in your professional life or something. Maybe your nervous system is all jacked up over something that happened. And you just need to kind of like be present with that and walk yourself through the process of like identifying how you feel and what's going on with that. And there are episodes on the podcast that will help you with your feelings and how to process them. Maybe you just need a mental break and you want to learn, like, maybe turn to your meditation. Any kind of like experimentation with meeting your need before you choose to eat is a great place to work. Now, if you still choose to eat after that, just know it's normal. Like someone who is working on no longer biting their nails will just decrease that habit over time. Like they still bite their nails from time to time. When you have a habit of overeating, it's pretty rare to just have somebody just decide they're never going to do it again, and then they just don't. I mean, if you can, great. But for most of us, it'll be a process of allowing that habit to extinguish while you actually meet the need with other strategies and actions, or stop doing certain things to better meet your need. So write down, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is the emotional weather of my day been up until this point? And is that affecting how I feel right now? And could that be why I'm looking to food? Okay. So just know that future you, who figured out how to lose her weight, she was probably willing to take a closer look at overeating rather than just judging herself and telling herself that she should be able to just do what she said. She probably decided to drop the habit of judging her food performance and instead developed a relationship of emotional self care, a practice of self care, where you have lots of tools in your tool belt that you have at the ready to take care of your needs. So the pressure on food to take care of your needs is much, much less. So step one is to drop the judgment and just tell yourself nothing's gone wrong here. The overeating is trying to get my attention about what's really needed in my life beyond what food can give me. And step two is to get curious and answer some questions for yourself about what is going on for you right before you had the urge to overeat. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And what was going on in the context of your day that led up to that point where you had the thought to overeat? My advice is to compile one, like a worksheet for each one of these overeats that you have over the next 30 days. And just instead of judging your performance, I want you to get really curious, like that scientist running their experiment, and really look at this experiment of your eating habits and try to figure out what is the element in your life that's putting tension on your life so that you think overeating is going to help you. knowing that overeating takes you away from your weight loss dream. And so we want to get really curious about that. And if you can do that, I promise you, for 30 days, when you have a pile of these worksheets about what's going on when you want to overeat, I promise you, you'll be able to spot very clear patterns about what is it in your life that's putting pressure on the way that you think about your world so that you look for a solution to that pressure in eating. And I want you to work with those aspects of your life rather than judging the shit out of your performance as the solution. You know, that like judging your ability to not overeat is like putting a band aid on a broken arm. I want you to instead use all your energy and your intelligence and creative problem solving on looking at the life that's creating tension that you are relieving with overeating. You see, so many of my clients are just so like surprised about the little parts of their life that all can add up to a strategy of overeating and a life where you're carrying around more weight than you want to. And if you think about it, like overeating to try to like feel better from how you're thinking about your life and how you're meeting your life is buffering you. It's a cushion, literal cushion. It's metaphorical and it's physical. That is between you and the life that is unbuffered from the habit of overeating. And what does that mean? I mean, I can use let's use the example of over drinking. When you overdrink, you can sort of like opt out of hard feelings about your life that put chronic tension on how you see yourself in your life and the components of your life. The problem with that kind of buffering is that you can't selectively buffer. You can't just use the alcohol to buffer the bad feelings. The alcohol sort of buffers you against all the good stuff too. And if you bring this over to your relationship with overeating, you can see that overeating probably has a tendency to take you away from the moment that's there without the overeating. More presence at the table with your kids or your spouse or your loved one. Thoughts that are intrusive that take you away from your work, that slows it down maybe and makes the work take longer than it has to, so that you are working more often than you want to. And then you feel even more tired and overworked. And then that tension builds on the other tension, which builds on the other. So instead of just like trying to get rid of this tension by blaming yourself for overeating, I want you to really look at the underlying tension. And, you know, in the process of writing down what's going on with your overeating, what you're thinking, and how you're feeling, I want you to identify parts of your life that are really waving red flags for you to take a good hard look at. What needs to change? Like, just play with it. Like, what in my life is begging for me to have the courage to look at what needs changing? It doesn't mean you have to change it, but you can just like open up that door that's been locked, open it up, turn on the light, and just see what's there. Maybe for this is like you're unhappy with your job. You know, maybe you are in a negative dynamic in a relationship that you have that feels really hard and you just don't know where to start. All of this is requiring courage for you to kind of evolve that aspect of your life. Because think about it, like all of our life, we're evolving. We have to go from a newborn baby to drawing our last breath. And we change so much in between. This is a constant experience in our life of evolving and growing and letting go of the old and embracing the new. And a lot of times when we're just resisting that next evolving of us and letting go of the old and making space for the new, when we don't allow our life to just do that, that tension we can overeat over. And so maybe that's there too. I mean, I don't know what it is for you. This is why like weight loss is not just about calories in and calories out and just telling yourself what to do over food. This is an exploration of what your life is trying to call you toward. Okay. And so drop the judgment, stay focused on what is being needed in that moment and get really, really curious about it. Okay. Do your worksheets, answer your 2 steps. Okay. Do it for 30 days and just see what happens. This can be completely life changing for you. And at the end, it's always so interesting how it's really not about the food. It's about the life that's calling you forward. And that is really so compelling. It's always there for you. Do you have the courage to really look at it for what it is? Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Go over to the episode 23 post and feel free to DM me or just leave me a comment about what came from this, or if you have any questions, ahas, or takeaways from the episode. Okay. So stay focused on what you want, and so long. Hey, if this episode was helpful, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe. You'll get a gift from me, exclusive subscriber content, and advanced notice of in-person events.